how to craft your song. And again, this could take a whole semester to teach or to talk about. But I'm just going the high level points to where just break it down a little bit, to where we can gather some good information and use that as we make progress in writing our songs here with. Next slide, please. Yeah, I'm waiting for you to push the next slide. So as we all know, writing a song is quite a tedious process, and everybody has the ability to write a song. It doesn't even matter what your level of education or music knowledge is. A song is a piece of art, it's a work of art. So it can come in different ways. And so what I'm trying to talk about today is the fact that there are multiple facets to writing a song. There are different parts of it. For example, it's important that as you begin to write your song, think about the introduction. What would the introduction be like? Is it a boring introduction to where somebody listens to it and the next thing they're going to skip? Or is it going to be so captivating that as soon as they listen, it keeps their attention and wants, makes them want to continue listening? So you want to have a great introduction, followed by a verse. You want to have a very solid verse that tells your story, make it captivating. Typically, 2 verses are okay. I've seen songs with 5 verses. It gets a little boring when you go that far, but you can also be creative with it to where even 5 verses does not seem like 5 verses. There's a pre-chorus. Usually, it's optional. If you put it in, it kind of introduces the chorus. And then there's a chorus which tells the story of the song, which is usually where the title of the song comes from. So you want to craft a chorus that is so sweet in the ear and that has a lot of great melody. And then there's a bridge. Most songs have bridges, not all. Most songs do have bridges. And that bridge is kind of a breakaway from what you've been doing in the introduction, the verse, and the chorus, and just kind of brings something new to the song, to the process. Then once you get into that bridge, once you jump out of the bridge, you go into either another verse or a chorus or the outro. And the outro just kind of defines the end of the song. And so that way the listener is gravitating to a point where they know the song's coming to an end. They can actually have enjoyed the experience all the way through to there. And remember, there's no wrong or right way to write a song. It just depends on what kind of message you want to pass across and how you want to craft that message within that song. Now, some people have asked, what's the best length of a song? There's no best length. A song could be 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. It just depends. Now, if you want your song to be a commercial radio ready song, 3 minutes and 12 seconds is going too far already. So you want to keep it at a bare minimum of maybe 3 minutes. Not to say if you make a 4-minute song that I can play it on the radio, they're just going to cut it where they need to cut it. So make sure you keep your songs in good time and all of that. Caution. A lot of people tend to write their songs while they're in the studio. Remember, studio time, you're paying for that time. Unless you own the studio, then you don't have to pay for it. But it's not a good place to write your song just because there are different things happening in that environment. You really want to just be there to sing if you can. Next slide. So one of the most important parts of writing a song is crafting a good melody. If you have a good melody, chances are that song is going to be a great song. Because what does that do for a song? It is one of the most important parts that grabs a listener's attention. Is it sweet in the ear? Is it memorable? Would I be able to remember that melody long after I've heard the song? Those things important, and you have to take them into consideration. Is the melody addictive? When I wrote the word addictive here, I kind of laughed at myself, but you want your melody to be addictive. Somebody listens to it, they just want to keep listening. Is the melody captivating enough? Is it enough for a little child, say a 2-year-old, to just start humming around and singing it? When you have that type of melody, you know you have a good melody. How many bars would each of the parts of the song, the parts that we talked in the beginning, how many bars would each of them have? You have to make those decisions consciously as you begin to write the song. Next slide. One other important part of songwriting is the lyrical content. You want to bring lyrics that make sense, lyrics that tie in together. So are the lyrics catchy? Are these catchy phrases that somebody can hear and get glued to? Do the phrases tie together? I've seen many a song that has lyrics just going opposite directions. They're not tying together. What is there a rhyme scheme? Or like, for example, rap music has a lot of rhyme scheme, but also conventional, just the everyday music nowadays, it's starting to have a lot of rhyme scheme to where it becomes like a poem. A lot of people turn poems to great songs because their lyrical content is so tight that everything just kind of binds together. Is there an element of surprise? And when I say element of surprise, you don't want your listener to just be bored with the same thing from beginning to end. I cannot make that kind of song ever. It just would never happen. It has to have stages. It starts from here, then it goes to here, then it moves to this place, and it comes back here, then it goes here. It has to just be a continuous flow of new information from beginning to end. That's how you want to write a song. And your lyrical content stands stands on top of that to make sure that things are changing constantly. And are you writing the music first, or are you working from an existing composition? So, for example, some folks like to write. I like to write the music out completely, just sketch everything out, and then go make the music, play the guitars, keyboards, drums, whatever you want to add to it. Some folks like to get a beat and sing from that. So either way, it just depends on what works best for you. I would advise, though, that you try and do both. Not for every song. So one song you could be doing, writing the music up front and then make the song, or you can just get the beat and then write on it. It just depends on the artist. It depends on how you feel. It depends on where the inspiration is drawn from, too. So all of that matters. So you want to take those things into consideration. Next slide, please. Now, we get into the music production proper. Once you're done writing your song, then what? What happens to this song at this point? For a lot of people, they have little mini studios at home where they can perfect their song and kind of get into it and dig in and make it themselves. Others are not so fortunate to have the knowledge to do that, so they'll go to a studio. You want to think about who will arrange this song for you. What will the structure of the song become? Have you considered the kinds of instruments to use? I've had people walk in and they go, hey, look, by the way, the most important part of this song for me is the bass guitar. So now I know that's what the artist is looking at to be the biggest instrument in the song, not even the vocal. The vocal is probably the most important, but some songs are driven by bass guitar or the vocal, or just a lead guitar or a solo guitar. Anything that drives you is really where you want to be. Do you have a reference song? A lot of times we have a feeling that if you use a reference song, you're not being creative enough. That's a fallacy. You want to have a reference song because there's no song that has not been made before. Why go through all the burden of trying to recreate the wheel when it's already been done? Get a reference song. Why? I explain that at the end. When we get to the end, you'll see why you really need a reference song. But yes, do you have a reference song? If not, find it. What's the reference song? That one song that you listen to and go, hey, I want my song to sound like this. Maybe not the same music, maybe not the same drums, but just the overall flavor of the music of the song is what you're trying to achieve. And so then that reference becomes a guide, a guiding post that you can work to and from. What kind of studio you're going to be using? You want to think about that carefully too. Um, have you considered having a small recording rig at home? I advise people all the time, get something small. $300 could buy you a microphone, an audio interface, a mic stand, a mic cable, a pop filter for you to start recording some music on your computer. You can do that. And as many mistakes as you make, that's how many um, uh, learning curves that you're going to have to improve your skills. So it's always a good idea to just have something at home that if your inspiration kicks in, you can run right into and record some stuff just so you can listen back and work and perfect it. Next slide. All right, let's get to the arrangement. This is where you build excitement and variety into a song. You know, you and your producer may consider when and where to bring the following. When you start to sing this song, you're gonna sing your lead vocal, you're gonna sing the chorus. Now you're gonna start laying some vocal harmonies. Do you need them? How many do you need? Where do you want to put them? Effects. A lot of what you hear in music is based on the way the effects have been crafted. You know, you want to use good effects. You want to use some EQs, compression, delay, reverbs. You know, and I'll explain all of that below as we go. Percussions. What kind of percussions are you going to put in this song? You're going to put some. Our African music has a lot of congas, bongo shakers, wood blocks, tamarines, and all kinds of other stuff. Have you considered using these? And it's okay to talk to the engineer. If you're not the engineer, talk to him. Tell him exactly what you want to hear. However, I'm going to caution you, let them bring their part of the story into the song. Don't dictate. A lot of artists come to the studio and they dictate. And I can just about tell you when an artist starts to dictate, the song comes out a different way. Most of the time, it will come out in a way that was not originally intended to come out because you're telling somebody who knows. For example, I know this room. I know what every instrument is supposed to sound like in this room. And if you come in and you say, "Hey, I don't want to hear this high," that's because you don't understand the acoustics of the room. And so you're hearing it as high, but I'm hearing it and I know it's okay in the song. If I bounce it that way and give it to you, go listen, you're going to hear that high in your car because I understand the room. So as much as you want to give your input, which is okay, also don't limit the producer's input into your song because it only goes to help the song. I always call this the kitchen is where you bring all your ingredients and we can make them together and give you a good song. So if you start by limiting how many ingredients are going to come into that song, you already run a chance of limiting how great your song is going to become. That's a fact. So it's important to just kind of know that. Do you want to use some air or wind instruments? Do you want to double some vocals in certain places? Great technique. You know, you want to double vocals wherever needed. Not too many, but you need enough to make it sound the way you need it to sound. You're going to double some guitars, pan some of them left, right, center, whatever how you want to do it. You want to change tempos within the song, or do you want to modulate within that song? I remember Sister Angel. Is Angel? Angel's here. We did a song with Angel, and at some
Yes.
we felt as though we needed to modulate. We needed to move the song up someplace. We needed to. So, and again, we have that conversation back and forth between her and I. We'll talk about it and go, okay, well, this may not be the best idea, and we'll just drop it if we don't think it's going to work. But I personally like to try everything. You know, you don't get the best song if you don't try different things. You got to make things move around and see how it feels. So, for example, Angela says, "I want to sing this part. What do you think?" I'm like, "Oh, sing it. Let's hear what it sounds like." And then once she's done singing, then we both listen and go, "Yeah, we like it," or "No, we don't." And then we just delete it. We don't need it. We don't need it because it's not. Every time you add something to a song, think about it. Ask yourself the question: what does this bring to the song? If it's not bringing anything to the song, anything new, or bringing some that element of surprise that we talked about, you don't really need it because you're just loading instruments that's going to end up just choking your song. So sometimes less is more when you make a song. Um, and so you want to talk about also your guitars, your keyboards, piano, all that stuff. Discuss it, have that conversation, and find out what's going to work for the song. All right, next slide. At this point, you're getting ready to record the song. Critical step. I have seen, I've done this 28 years, going on 30 years. I've seen so many people bring a recording that was as noisy. I mean, I had somebody record something from Nigeria, I think it was, and there was a generator running in the back. And I can hear that generator in the song. They couldn't hear it, but I could. And I'm like, you want to use this? It has like all this noise in the back. Can you use it? Yes. Is it the best? No. So whatever you record is what you're going to get at the end. So you want to make sure that your recordings are like clean and punchy. One way to do that is to just take your time. So if your recording is noisy, if it's clipping, it means you recorded it too hot. If it's distorted, if it's boxy sounding like that, or if it's just plain dull, there's no way to fix it once you record it. You just got to redo it. So just make sure that every time you go record someplace, you have it keeping these things in mind and just making sure you can hear it clearly. It's nice and clean, and there are no other things in there that can, break down the song for you in a way that you don't like. So just remember, from your microphone selection to the cable that you're going to use to record from the mic to your audio interface to the audio interface itself, every piece of that is critical in the recording process. You cannot undermine any of them. Now, can you record?
Doc, your sound has some issues. Maybe you can check that out.
Now,
Yeah, it's better now.
okay. So here's the recording process. Things to remember. Take your time and be mentally prepared to record. Don't come recording when you just got off work, you're tired, you've been at work all day, and now you want to come record. You're not going to get the best out of it. Just give yourself some time. Record at a convenient time for you. And understand, we don't live in a society where we can just get up in the morning and go do recording, and that's all we do in life. We have to go to work, we have family, we have kids and stuff. But you want to find that one time that's very convenient enough for you. So when you record, your vocals are going to be at their optimum, their best, so to speak. Practice, practice, practice. If you don't practice the song enough, chances are you're not going to record a great song. So you have to practice. It's okay. And again, the studio is not a place to practice. Do I mind if you practice in here? I don't. I really don't mind. But at the end of the day, we're trying to record. So if you come in here not knowing, and I've seen this where you give somebody a beat, they go, they spend 2 weeks, and then they come in and they're still trying to write the song at the studio. It makes no sense. You had all that time, use it, come in and get prepared and do it. Before you start any recording, it's important to do vocal warm-ups. There are hundreds of techniques on how to warm up your vocal. Always warm up your vocal before you record. What that does is it sets the pace, even just in your mind. It says, I'm ready. And then, of course, it gives your vocal cords the ability to be able to perform at their best. Make sure your microphone is properly placed if you're recording at home. I have seen so many people put a microphone right next to a wall and they're getting ready to record. Now, what you don't understand about standing waves, there's something called standing waves. They all, and bass frequencies, they all accumulate at the corners. So when you start recording there, you're just having a dull recording in that space. I would pull that microphone to just about the center of the room and then record there, adjacent a window or some wall or whatever the case may be. But do not put your microphone in the corner and try and record, because you're going to get the worst type of vocals that you really not going to be able to use. Get the best of each take. So if you're going to record a lead vocal, try and do 3 takes of the same thing and see which one is best. If you don't like all of them, delete them and do it over. Keep doing it until you get it to sound as great as you need it, and then you can use that. Make sure your vocals are clean. Now, when I say clean, I mean, don't try and put some effects to the vocal while you're recording it, because you may not understand how to use those effects in that recording once you're done. And once you're done, you can't unpile them. They're already in the recording. So try as much as possible to record clean with no effects. Now, I record with a whole bunch of effects because I'm already hearing the sound that I want. I know exactly what I'm reaching for, so I can tune it and get it to sound exactly the way I want prior to recording it. And record instruments clean too. When you get ready to record a guitar, don't put too much reverb, don't push too much delay, because you may not be able to use it. If you record it clean, you can add some effects to it, and you can undo the effects if you want to at that time, and it's still not going to hurt it. So very important thing to note these points right here. All right, next slide. When you get to editing your vocals or any part of the song at this stage, you are looking to clean up some stuff, remove things that you don't want. And again, before I get to that, I want to just emphasize that, there are a lot of people who say they're studio engineers or they know how to do this just by watching some YouTube videos and all of that. That's great. But if you really don't know this process, I would suggest you get to somebody who knows and work with them. Now, if you're doing it because you want to learn, that's good, because the more mistakes you make, the more you're going to learn. So then you just be at that stage where you're constantly making mistakes and learning until you actually become a professional in it. So there's a lot to editing that if you don't know how to edit, don't get into it, because you're going to ruin the stuff that you recorded. When you start editing, there's a process called comping, which is where you take, so let's say you recorded 3 tracks of the lead vocal. Now you're going to listen to all 3, and then you pick the parts that really work for each one, and then put it together, kind of stitch them together, and use that one as the main vocal that you're going to be using to work with. Now, the process of comping is complicated, but it's a great process because you remove all the noise gaps, the clips, the pops, all the breaths that you don't want, and all of that, and clean the vocals up so that way you'll be able to use them. And not just vocals, even guitar takes if you're recording live. You want to make sure your vocals are tuned. At this point, I use Melodyne 5. Great tool to tune your vocals. And don't get hung up in the, oh, they're trying to fix my vocals, it means I don't know how to sing. No. Michael Jackson had his vocals pitch corrected at every point in every song. Everybody that I know, everybody out here does that. So don't feel as though this engineer is trying to prove to me that I don't know how to sing. And that's why they're editing my vocals. It's okay, let them edit. If it's gonna sound good, that's what we need to do. And I can guarantee you 99.9% of the time, your vocals are gonna get edited by any means possible, because that's just how it works. You have to, singing with headphones is not a natural experience, right? So when you start singing with headphones on, you may not even be able to hear yourself well. So some notes are up, some notes are down. That's why we need to edit so we can clean all of that. I think I still have something on the slide before this. And then the instruments, of course, check all instruments and just make sure they line up properly. Make sure that there's no phasing. So that there could be a lot of phasing issues where the instruments or the tracks, whatever track, they sit at the same frequency, they'll cancel each other out. So you want to make sure there's no phasing in any of your recordings prior to mixing. Make sure the instruments complement each other. I have seen a person bring a song here, and that song probably had like 70 tracks. And I'm listening to all the tracks, and I'm like, why do we have this? Why do we have that? I'm like, they can't answer why. There's just a load of tracks that don't complement each other. They're not working together. So you want to make sure. If I make a song, I'll probably have about maybe 6 drum instruments and maybe like 5 music instruments. That's it. That's all I need to make a song. And then, of course, vocals will be laid all over the place. You don't necessarily need too many instruments to make a great song. That's a good point. All right, next one. So here it is. We got the song. We did all this other stuff. Now we're trying to mix it. Mixing is the process where you're taking all the parts of the song and bringing them together to form one cohesive. I always call it like a bouncing ball, like a soccer ball that you can bounce, and it's just, there's enough air in it. If you kick it, it's going to go as far as possible. You want to bring all those things together and make it feel like that. If you drop the ball, it's not just going to go flat. It's going to bounce and come back to you. And so when you start to mix, you make decisions at every stage. And these decisions, as you begin to make them, they build up the process of mixing and brings the bass guitar in line, the lead vocal in line, the kick in line, the snare, hi-hat, cymbals. Everything sits in place. The guitars. How many guitars do I have? If I have 2, I'm putting one over here. I'm putting the other one on this side. If I have a string, I'm putting it someplace in there. Everything has to have its space within that circumference. Everybody has their own space. Everybody's not lined up in the middle. Then it's just going to sound really crappy. On average, I would spend about 40 hours on this song. Any song that I work on, I would not, it's hard to spend less than 40 hours. For me, I've seen people say, oh, I just made a song in 1 hour. Fine, great. I can't do that. I've spent considerable amounts of time because I need to be able to listen to that song and get the listener to hear everything that I wanted them to hear. And so one of the ways to do it is to constantly listen and take breaks and come back and listen and go on and on and on until I'm satisfied with the mix, then I can release it. So again, this is like cooking, right? You bring the ingredients and each one has a specific dose that you pour into it to make sure that you get a good mix. So when you start to mix, you want to consider the following things that we're going to talk about now. Because this is a creative process, don't be afraid to experiment. That's how you know it. You got to try everything. Now, what you try, just don't get glued to one thing. Try everything. Use some EQ. I personally like to use subtractive EQ, where I'm taking from instead of adding, I'm removing stuff from it so I can get some clarity. I can get it to, sound better, more depth, more width, the height of the song, all of that. I'm building that into it with EQ. Compression, be careful with that. A lot of people don't understand compression, so they're just going to take it and slap it on a vocal and say, I got some compression, we're good to go. Compression actually really would kill the sonics of your song if you're not careful, if you don't know how to use it. So you want to be careful how much compression you use on anything. Now, but again, that's probably one of your best tools to use when you make a song. So, but you just have to be careful how you use it. Automation is great because it gets you the right volumes and pans and all kinds of stuff. So you want to use automation quite a lot. I use it a lot on either on the mixer itself, or if I'm mixing in the box, I'll use automation because you're building different envelopes within the mix, and you can raise stuff up or down, whatever how you need to create balance. Reverbs and delays is something that you add to your song to create that sense of space, give it a sense of width and depth. You know, if you overuse it, it's going to mess up the song. If you don't use enough, you're just not going to have enough space for your song to sit within. Next slide. All right, here's some things that you should never do when you mix. Never mix in solo. So what does that mean? I have 20 tracks and I'm constantly turning this one track on and listening to it all the time. Like, okay, I want to hear this one. And then I'll turn that off and go turn another one on. That's a bad day. Your mix is just not going to sound good. Not paying too much attention to the stereo width. I tend to mix 89% of the time in mono. What does that mean? It means I am muting everything that's been panned, not mute, but I don't really hear it because I turned the solo mono function on in the door itself or on the mixer. On this mixer, I just hit that mono version so I can hear the song as though it was playing on a one speaker type of cassette radio. If I can hear it there, chances are it's going to sound good in a car on whatever system that has two speakers playing. So make sure that you can pay attention to your stereo width. You don't want to squash your dynamics too much. That's what I was talking about with compression. If you add too much compression, it's going to kill the dynamics of your song, and it's not going to be as clear as you need it to be. You have to also check your mix in mono, which is what I do all the time. Is I mix most of the time in mono, then I'll just go back and forth and listen in stereo to make sure everything sits tight. Remember, we talked about reference tracks. Here's where that comes in. When you get ready to mix, you are putting a song and wanting to have that song sound like another song in terms of maybe the width, maybe the where they did put the lead vocals, or where the guitars were sounding, or the way the keyboard came in. You want to mirror some of those things because it helps. Every time you mix without without a reference track, you limit yourself to just what you're hearing, as opposed to what somebody else has done that you can listen to and go, oh, they panned the guitars about 80% left. So maybe if I do that, it's going to sound really good. Remember, commercial recordings have a lot of potential. You hear them on radios, you like them because they put in a lot of time and they did a lot of work to it. So would it really hurt your song if you were to listen to those and work with them? It's a good idea. So you should use reference songs. Not using reference speakers. You have to use reference speakers. I have 4 sets of speakers. So when I mix on these speakers, I got to listen to these, and then I'll listen to them on that, and I go listen to them on that side. Now, because I have the luxury of having a lot of speakers, but if you don't have them, you can also use your main speakers and reference your headphones. You want to do some type of reference check to just make sure that what you're hearing is really what it is. Lack of headroom. A lot of times when younger producers mix, if you go in the master section of their mix, it's just all red. So at that point, there's nowhere else to push the faders. Make sure you're not mixing too high. And that's something else we'll talk about. You got to check frequency disparities. Make sure you're not listening to your mix at very high volumes. Because what would happen is, at high volumes, you're thinking, I can hear everything. When I mix, my volume, if you were to look at the clock, my volume would be right about 7 p.m. So right there, just enough. I can have a conversation and still hear everything that's playing. If I can hear your song at that level, it means I can hear everything. If I can hear everything in there at that level, it means that's a great mix. But when it's too high and then it messes with your ears, so it's a good idea not to listen to excessively loud music. First of all, for your goodness, but also if you are a mix engineer or you're getting ready to get into it, make sure that you're not listening to your song at very high or excessively high volumes. It's not a good idea. It does not help you. It does not help the song. Check for phase problems. Take a lot of breaks. If I'm going to be mixing a song for 4 hours, typically that's 4 hours is like my lowest number of hours to stay in the mix. I'd probably take about 20 breaks within those 4 hours because I can't listen to the whole thing I got to take a break every now and then, 5, 10, 15 minutes at a time. Sometimes I just take a break and go run outside, go stand outside, listen to some birds. And then you come back with a fresh perspective. You can get back on the song and make it sound even greater. Next slide. Mastering. This is the final stage of a song. So what happens is once you have a great mix, mastering is just the process where you kind of take that final mix and just give it a little touch. Just kind of make it sit right, make it look commercial, make it stand out with the other commercial records. So there are a lot of tools nowadays where you can take your mix and then take another, say a Michael Jackson mix and give them the same balance. You can do that now. Back when we were doing this 25, maybe so years ago, there was not that option. Everything had to be done on the board, and you had to kind of listen to something on the radio and then come try and imagine. Now you can do that. So it's a good idea to make sure that when you also are mastering, you're using that reference track to gain the same level of volume, the same level of limiting that was done to the song. When you get ready to, not a good idea to master your own songs that you mix. I typically don't master any song that I mix. The reason is because I've heard the song maybe about 500 plus times, and there's really not much else I can add to that song. If I give it to a professional mastering engineer, they can bring something new to the song that will really help it. So I prefer that option. Now, if somebody else mixes a song, I can master it because I haven't heard it. And so I'm adding something, I'm bringing a fresh perspective to the song. So things to avoid in mastering, don't make it excessively loud. Mastering does not mean loud. It means enhancing the mix. So when I mix a song, I already have it enough to where it needs to be. I just need that extra touch and sheen on top of it. It's not to go make it extremely loud. Extremely loud does not mean, it does not equate good. People apply processing too aggressively. That's not a good idea. Going against the intentions of the mix engineer. So for example, we mixed Angel's song, and I keep saying Angel because she's here, right? She's still here?
Yes.
Okay, so we mixed Angel's song, and I sent it to my good old friend Matt over in Baltimore to do the mastering. And he calls me, he goes, man, I like that bass on this song. And what I want to do is just kind of tone it enough so it just sits right in the pocket. I said, Matt, go ahead. Now, if Matt would have taken that song and turned the bass to another direction, that was not where Angel and I were going, that would ruin the song. So he understands that he just needs to enhance it, not change the perspective that the artist and I came up with. Don't make it too wide. Sometimes younger producers, and I keep saying younger because that's the place where most of these songs get ruined, is the younger person that does not have enough experience. They want to just put things wide, and they don't know that the more you widen it, the less of some instruments you're going to hear, especially things with pan far all the way right and left. You're not going to hear them on a mono system, or you're going to hear them very less. So Applying that will not help the song. Too much of it will not help. Don't put compression if it's not needed. Don't distort the song. Please do not distort your song. If it starts to distort, it just blurs the listening experience. You don't want to do that. And dithering, you don't want to apply unnecessary dithering to a song when it's already dithered enough in the software. Next slide. And that's it, the end. So in a nutshell,